Good day, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have two guests today. Sean Adkins, the town manager for St. Albans Town. Sean, good to see you.
Right.
And our first appearance in quite a while out here, Al Vogele, the Director of Operations for St. Albans Town. Good to see you, folks.
Thank you.
Taping this show on Wednesday, January 29th, as we got a little bit of winter out there. I measured about 1.25 inches of snow this morning in my car, so I think getting enough snow to get out to Champlain Country Club for some cross-country skiing one of these days. But,
Nice.
but pretty solid winter. It's been a pretty solid January of winter weather around here.
Horrible.
Yeah, horrible with
Woodstock.
the planet coming off another record warm year in 2024.
Yeah.
Anyway, how's the town faring winter wise? We haven't had a ton of snow, Sean, but doing okay.
Yeah, doing all right. Hasn't been, a lot of snow in terms of, inches or measured, but we've had pretty consistent weather. So there's
Yeah.
a stretch, a week to a couple weeks ago where essentially our guys felt like they were on the road plowing for, almost 24/7.
I hear you. I'm in St. Albans City, and
Yeah.
even just an inch like this morning, even a half inch, I guess,
Yeah.
any kind of covering they've got to deal with. So,
Yeah.
it seems like I'm hearing plows every other morning or so this month.
Plus with the temperature being so low,
Right.
it makes it more complicated, as everybody knows.
Right.
Yeah.
Al, first time we've seen you in a while, Director of Operations. Tell us about your job for St. Albans Town. What do you?
Basically, I'm a fill-in and a line holder.
Yeah. Sounds like a very good one. But so what?
Yes, it
What
is.
do you do with that? What's that
So-
job about?
So when Carrie was the town manager, she was ill, and she and that select board asked me to fill in for her while she was going to be absent for a month.
Carrie Johnston, who
Carrie
of course is
Johnston.
now still. I guess last time I left her, still the interim town administrator in Highgate.
In
Still
Highgate, yeah.
Interesting.
And so and then when she left and Sean came in, the select board said, he's from Virginia. He needs somebody to help him get around town and know how things work up here versus in Virginia.
Yeah.
And then Sean decided to keep me on as a director of operations. It's a part-time job, and I guess it has two roles. One is that I can back him up if he's out of state and there's an emergency.
Yeah.
We have continuous leadership. And then secondly, I'm there to help him or talk things out with him in terms of policy. And then I have a good relationship with the staff, so sometimes I pick up gossip, which I can pass on. And then finally, I'm working on trying to get cell service down to the Bay.
Trying to get.
Cell phone.
Telephone cell service.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is not there now, or very spotty.
Yeah,
I
spotty
guess
at
I know
best.
that from the time I spend at the Bay Park. In fact, Al,
Right.
easy to think of your late wife. I spend a not small amount of time on the great bench
Bench for her.
dedicated to Roberta.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
appreciate that.
Yeah, we did
So cell
upgrade the-
service, that's been an issue forever then. Huh, down
Yeah,
there?
just real quick, we actually
Yeah.
did upgrade the Wi-Fi this last
Oh,
year
yeah.
at the Bay Park
Yeah.
to kind of help make up for the lack of cell service, especially for events and stuff like that.
Huh.
But yeah, in our town hall, if I don't have our Wi-Fi on my phone or laptop,
Really?
0 bars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're making progress on that, or?
It's very slowly. Haven't gotten only one company out of 9, I think, have responded.
Really?
And spent the morning with him going around the town all the way up through the halfway point.
Huh.
And so now he's going. This is a representative of a tower construction company.
Wow.
And then, so he's going back with what he understands are the needs for us in the Bay and try to find now the companies that sell services. For example, Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T and AT&T.
Yeah.
And that's where the economy comes, whether it'll happen or not happen. We're fortunate that we can help. If that's a major issue, we can have the part help and then financially help, be it co-owner or whatever but to make sure that we get cell service to make the other for-profit companies able to make a profit.
Interesting. So is a tower the key to this? Are you going to need a tower if this
Yeah, we're gonna need
happens?
his impression was we need a 140-foot high tower.
Oh, wow, that's going to be interesting. I'm
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
that wouldn't generate any opposition from anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
is
There are
that
a few
right?
different options. That's the preference of that individual, but there are a couple.
Yeah, there are
of
other options. Now, I forget what they call them now, but they're small antennas around town.
kind of like extenders,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
Interesting. Of course,
would go
that's been a huge issue in the state. Seems like
Right.
every election you're hearing about, we need to do better with broadband. Are you getting any help from the state? Is this just
Oh, yeah.
here?
The Department of Public Service has been very helpful.
Yeah, we have to basically. There's a lot of regulatory
Really?
steps we got to take.
Wow, big
Yeah.
issue. So that's been driving people crazy for years. Then I guess. Huh?
Since I've been here,
Yeah.
at least, yeah. So it is an issue. Just it's a very simple one to at least understand, but then you jump into actually looking into it and thinking of like, all right, well, why isn't it done already? So
Right.
then you kind of have to prove the demand and then go from there. And I mean, best case scenario, we're looking at. I'd like to think 3 to 5, but most likely 5.
Is that 5 years?
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd love to be wrong on that and have it be earlier, but we'll
Wow.
see. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I dropped that on Al's lap and said, all right.
Boy, good luck with that, Al.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back in time. Of course, you served some time on the St. Albans Town Select Board in the past.
Right.
But I want to go back to Colchester.
Okay.
Didn't you, your many years in Colchester, didn't you get hired, as I recall, as interim town manager? Was it first interim, then you stayed around for how many years?
Actually, I was hired by the previous town manager to do budgeting for the town of Colchester.
So budgeting.
Right. I was assistant director, but it was as that. So then he left, and I stepped in as interim because they put out an advertisement.
Huh.
And after a couple of interviews, they came back to me and said, would I be willing to put an application in for town manager?
Interesting.
And so then I stayed for 13 years there.
For 13 years.
Yeah.
It's a long run.
Interesting. You kept living in St. Albans Town the whole time.
Yeah.
Not too bad a commute. I don't know, Colchester. I've always kind of liked Colchester. Seems like a pretty decent town. Pat Brendan, the longtime state rep, now state senator,
Right.
was on WVMT this morning.
Was he?
Heard him a little bit, but so Colchester, you got to feel pretty good about your years there, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Huh?
and the people of Colchester are extremely positive about government and
Yeah.
support it. A lot of volunteers, no
Huh.
difficulty in finding volunteers.
Huh.
Yeah, very active community.
How do you think St. Albans Town is on that front? Obviously, a much smaller place, but do you feel the town's been pretty good about finding enough volunteers?
No, that's our problem,
That's a problem.
Yeah.
major
Yeah.
problem.
Really?
And just because of my age,
Yeah.
I strongly believe that we have to get younger people, 40 and 50 years old,
Yeah.
involved because it's their country, their town
Sure.
coming up. I'm passing out, but somebody's got to fulfill my roles. That was the last thing I wanted to say, holding a line on the capital, on our regular budget, so that we can get a business leader in to support Sean. Back to the chief financial officer concept. But the select board's not been willing to go along with that. So Sean has created the line item on the budget, and I'm the body that fills it. I don't get paid as much as he puts in the budget, but
Yeah.
it's just a way that we can keep it on the table of organization, and at some point in time, Sean will be able to hire somebody. From my point of view, and since hopefully town people are listening,
Yeah.
the town, in my opinion, is extremely understaffed.
Really?
Yeah, I think we only have 7 people other than DPW. And that's not enough to run a town of almost 7,000 people now.
And now, of course, the biggest municipality in Franklin County, having
Right.
just gotten past the city.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities we have, but we have hard time moving forward on those opportunities. And that's what worries me as a person who always looks to the future.
Yeah.
And we need young people or younger people to buy into that future. that future entails a lot of growth, either with or without the global climate issues. More people are going to come to this area. The governor's working on it. So my belief is we got to start planning for that, for housing, roads, etc. But that's a very slow process.
Interesting. Do you feel St. Albans Town? I'm sure you have pretty good feelings about St. You've been a St. Albans Town resident now for how long now?
Since 1977.
Wow, long time.
I'm still not a native.
I hear you. But you feel in general the town, I'm sure you have very good feelings about St. Albans Town, and sounds like there are plenty of challenges, but still have pretty good feelings for St. Albans Town?
Yeah, on that level. I just
Yeah.
wish that we had gotten to the relationship we have with the city a couple of years earlier.
Well, I would have saved both the city and town,
Right, tons of
God
money.
knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right,
At least it finally happened.
yeah.
Anyway, and speaking of which, I guess we can go to the budget town meeting day, not that
Yeah.
far away, Tuesday,
Not at all.
March 4th.
Yeah.
And I guess the big increase in the town budget is police. Again, you're splitting, of course, as of July 1st.
24.
St. Albans City PD covering St. Albans Town again.
Mhm.
And you're splitting that police budget 50-50, Sean,
50-50,
with
yeah.
the city.
Yeah.
And I know it's been getting quite a bit of attention, I guess. Dominic Cloud, your counterpart in the city, just saying, hey, we've got to pay officers more if we're going to keep these folks. So I guess what, an 8% increase is part of the budget for the salaries for officers? Is that about right, or
A little more than that.
a little more than that?
Yeah. Where it started and where it ended it ended better than where it started.
Yeah.
In terms of just sheer increase for the taxpayers.
Yeah.
I think it ended up being a 15% police
Oh, is that right?
for the police line. Yeah.
I think I saw a reference in maybe in the Messenger that Milton was hiking police officer salaries by
Yep.
30% or something.
Yep.
Wow.
And between Burlington and Milton, those are the two big hikes.
And it
so
sounds
that we
like
have to
Burlington
compete.
would kill for some more police officers, at least sounds like a majority of the city council these days.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of fun things to deal with on that front, and
Yeah.
I actually pretty grateful for Chief Lamont because I think his presence. I think the officers really like to work for him and
Yeah.
respect him. So in the landscape nationally, but also statewide here of that profession, I can only imagine it goes a long way to have somebody like him in charge. So.
Right.
It's helpful. Yeah.
Big issue. In your Colchester days, was it easy? Did you do well keeping police department fully staffed? Was that a
No, we had problems too.
Yeah.
Police are typically underpaid for the responsibilities they carry. And again, Burlington set the pace.
Yeah.
And then Colchester, people worked up that. It got so bad, though, that we had to put in a policy of bonuses
really?
to attract officers from other municipalities.
Wow.
And colleagues down there weren't too happy with me. But it's the only way we could get the force up to full strength.
Yeah.
And so the budgets for the paying for officers is a difficult town for municipalities. By the same token, if people don't support them, then they can accept being robbed or what have you.
What's the police force? You probably know a rough number. Colchester. How big's the Colchester PD? Do you know?
I
these
don't
days?
remember. It's certainly over 20.
Right. Isn't St. Albans PD?
We're at 16.
I think 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and the street crimes unit is out.
And that's
fully.
back up and running again.
Yep.
With what, two officers pretty much?
Yes. Yeah. But they fully functioning as of January 1. So
Interesting.
already learned a little bit about that, and they're up and running. Is all I guess is the
So the police department, the coverage part of the budget, that's the big increase in the town's budget.
Outside of police and inflation, like inflationary insurance and police, we would actually, I think our budget would have gone down a little bit.
Really?
Because we started off, with kind of the wants and needs. All right, what are we looking at here? And then just given the education tax and all that stuff, we basically slashed all we could slash without slashing people. So we're at a 4.9% increase.
4 point for the overall budget.
Yep.
And what is
Yep.
that? What's that budget figure roughly, Sean?
About 7.5.
7.5.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So up just under 5%.
Yep. Yeah, we started up around 9 or 10 and was able to get it
And
out.
you just wrapped that up very, very recently, I assume?
Yeah, I like to get that in Vermont with the timeline of how we basically have to finalize the budget
Yeah.
halfway through the year,
Yeah.
which formally, publicly, I'm not a fan of because you don't have time to have full projections. Yeah. So I've started back in early October and kind of did it a little differently since I started here. But so we basically have a good gist of it come by January.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we're actually having a special meeting tomorrow to formally, the select board to formally vote the ballots and the budget.
Really, Monday, Jan 27 was a filing deadline for candidates.
Mhm.
But there's a later deadline for like town budgets to be finalized.
Yes.
I guess I thought that was a deadline for anything, for
Yeah.
budgets also. Not
No,
the
it's
case.
a minimum of 30 days, but
Oh,
no more
really?
than 40.
Oh,
for
so you have
the,
a little more time past
yeah.
that filing deadline.
Yeah. So we actually could technically have done it at our meeting on Monday, but to get
Huh.
the town report out and
Right.
printed, we had to do it. We had to do it tomorrow so we can get it on the books to
Interesting.
have the annual report in time.
Does
Yeah.
Virginia, out of curiosity, do they have town meetings? Do they have anything, nothing like Vermont or New England?
Nope. It's usually, budget season will start around the same time, but
Huh.
final votes and stuff like that, which is just the council. It's not the public. Usually May or June. I've been a part of some processes where it's voted on the last meeting in June, right before the fiscal year. So you get
Interesting.
people showing up, at those meetings,
Right.
kind of like town meeting day, because it's
Right.
June and they have their opinions on it. But at that point, you have a much clearer picture. You have 12 months of what you got, what
Right.
what you might need more of, that type of thing. So
Al, you've dealt with a few town meetings in your life. I've been up here since mid-70s, or in St. Albans area myself. Town meeting day, I always get the sense kind of that it seems to be fading a little more year to year. Do you not agree?
Oh, yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Last couple of years, we've had nobody show up for the town meeting the day before the election.
hearing.
Well,
Yeah.
a little for the, having,
And that's discouraging. But we also, when we have budget hearings or talking with the select board about the budget,
Right.
again, the public's not showing up.
right.
They can complain
Yeah.
by not voting for it, but they don't tell us why. Because that, on the other hand, in all fairness, we've had in St. Albans great luck, the public voting our budgets.
Yeah.
And this year, at least on the radio, Governor is going to try to keep the education tax flat. So that should help all municipalities just coping with their existing
With, of course,
numbers.
the education hit being roughly 3/4 of the budget as opposed
Yeah.
to the roughly 1/4 on the municipal side.
yeah, that's
Yeah, I heard the governor's, I've listened to his watched his budget address yesterday.
Yeah, that's kind of the tougher part, unexpected on my part of coming to Vermont was the education tax and the public's understanding of it.
Yeah.
That we're separate.
Virginia's, we're just kind of one tax, it's just together, it's not a
All
separate.
locally. Yep.
Oh,
So
really?
each the city's the school budget is part of the city's budget.
And I'd
So,
like to think the education funding situation in Virginia maybe is something that a few people at least understand as opposed to Vermont, or is that pretty complicated in Virginia too?
I would say Vermont takes the cake on the confusion part, because there's no real. How do I want to put this? There's not really a gap of knowledge between the public and the system there.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, here are the numbers, here's why. Whereas here, there's some equation that's decides it, and
I think
yeah,
from the public's point of view, it would be better if we had two separate tax bills,
Yeah.
as opposed to combining
Yeah.
the education and the municipal into one. That looks horrible. But if you got an education tax bill in the town, I think both would have better success of passing
Well, I bet-
uniformly.
I bet municipal officials especially would be happy with
Happy.
that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
the school folks would be,
Yeah.
but But I hear you.
Because then last year I was worried about us just being collateral damage.
Right.
Because everybody was, understandably upset.
Education took, about a third of the school budgets went down, and actually the local school budget had its closest vote by far. Maple Run was a very narrow approval,
I think it was 70 votes.
Is that right?
70 something votes.
having
yeah.
been approved in previous years
Yeah.
very, very decisively.
Right.
Yeah. It's
No, it's become a huge issue. Boy, I went to the legislative breakfast at City Hall the other day and talked to some of the legislators, of course, a few questions, but boy, the issues in Montpelier just almost seem overwhelming to me. I mean, good luck, reforming education, finance reform, and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I wish those folks luck, but
Yeah.
and
there's like a lot of tough issues.
Yeah, and as I've been in Vermont 21 months maybe at this point. Who's
Yeah.
counting? But even just from an outsider's perspective, I see a lot of conflicting goals
Yeah.
in terms of the state. So that's a tough one to kind of come to terms with. The whole 50% conserved land with 35,000 homes that we need.
Right.
In the next 10 years,
Boy,
it's like, well,
good-
those both
good-
can't
good
come
luck.
true. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. So, or anywhere where there's a cattail, you can't build on because the wetland thing. So, a lot of these things are achievable, but it's going to be, I don't know the answers, but it's tough.
Let's go back.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. We could, though, introduce this, that our town is in a study with Chittenden County for
Transit-oriented.
transit-oriented development.
Oh, yeah.
And the concept is to look at where housing makes sense and then make the roads to support that lead towards the city or towards other economic areas as a way of cutting down on cars, things like that. You put in public transportation, people don't need two cars, they could get away with one, things like that.
Yeah.
Looking out towards 2050, what do we need to do to protect the planet? Start planning now for that housing and roads.
And are they talking possibly new roads when they talk about that?
Areas of growth.
Area of growth, in
Yeah.
areas of growth,
Yeah.
to be off, so to speak, branches off the main roads, like Newton and Lake.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that was a grant that was kind of just dropped in our lap as a gift.
Right.
At least I looked at it that way. We didn't have to pay anything for it, and Chittenden County included us because we're basically the natural
Bedroom.
next step in the progression of the growth. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
I've got a flyer here, the St. Albans Route 7 North Shared Use Path Scoping Study.
Mhm.
Guess there was a recent meeting on that.
Last
We
week.
talked about that before.
Yeah.
Anything, boy, that's just so hard for me to picture. Again, I wish those folks good luck. I mean, having sidewalks on the north end on Route 7 up towards Highgate Commons, Walmart, sounds like it'd be a great thing. Is that I'm sure I've asked you that question before. Is that conceivable to you?
It is,
Really?
yes. And I think that what has kind of hurt the public perception of it is a study that was done 6-7 years ago, mostly because of the price tag that it put on it.
Yeah.
I think it put something like $7 million on it. And I mean, it'll be expensive, but I think 7 million is, and I hope I don't eat these words, but 7 million I think is above and beyond what it'll be. It'll still be very expensive, but if you look at the Route 7 South sidewalk that we did,
Yeah.
and we got some resistance to that too.
You're very happy with how that turned out, correct?
Absolutely, it looks great.
Yeah.
I think even somebody like myself was very optimistic about it. To see how many people use that every day has been awesome. Yeah, it's people that I think even the people that didn't want it are kind of like, oh wow, okay, this is pretty good.
On the north end, there's enough room. There's enough room though for a sidewalk.
There is, and there's 3 alternatives. Basically one's on one side, one's on the other. Right now, alternative 3 is what we kind of decided on, and there's a section basically right around like Price Chopper down to the Maple Fields there, for that to be on both sides during that section with 2 crosses. So it's because right now there are a couple of sidewalks that go to nowhere up there anyway. So
Right.
to
I've talked.
incorporate
Dave Handy's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Right, I love it when they
Yeah.
make those,
Right.
Dave, they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into refurbishing the dealership and had to do, the
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
sidewalk to
sidewalk.
nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's if you go into any community and like you see people walking around, it's not only people. I think there's a misconception that it raises crime, but there's actually a lot of numbers and stats that say the opposite, because you have
Right.
more people walking around and about. So it's a priority for us. That project is years away. So this is it's not an engineering study. It's just kind of a scoping study.
Yeah.
Done by engineers, but we had a pretty good turnout for that meeting last week. But that's another one where we could be talking, 5+ years.
Yeah, I bet. Would that be, and again, this would obviously be an expensive project.
Mm-hmm.
That money would it be mostly outside money from somebody, or?
Yeah, I want to get as
Obviously,
much OPM as we can, which I'd say a lot's other people's money. So,
Yeah.
anyway.
OPM, I hadn't heard that before. I heard that.
Yeah. So and I think we have a pretty good chance at that, because
Yeah.
we're working on it with the city and with the state, with VTrans. It's a state road. So, it's something that we all see the importance of. So,
And speaking of such things, I guess it came before voters some years ago and they turned it down, but still hope, or still some thought being given to trying to get a sidewalk rec path between Satec and at least Collins Pearlie. That's still.
yes. Yep. That's still on the
Well,
table.
It sounds like the huge issue is crossing, again, I never remember the official name of the highway.
The SASH, St. Albans State Highway.
St. Albans State
Yeah,
Highway.
we just call it the SASH for short.
So where does that stand right now, Sean?
That one it's still there for sure.
Yeah.
And I've even talked to Bill Kimball and Maple Run about, future probably mutual grant applications for that.
Yeah,
The big obstacle is the cross. Plus with the roundabout coming, it's kind of between the roundabout.
and the roundabout at exit 19.
Mhm.
And that sounds like that's definitely
That's a
coming
go,
at
yep.
some point.
Yep, it's been approved.
Interesting.
And they came to the select board, last year sometime, and just to kind of get their blessing.
Huh.
And the select board agreed. So kind of, I imagine the crossing part will be figured out when we do that.
Yeah.
I put in for congressionally directed spending last year to put a pedestrian bridge over that, which has gotten, people kind of laugh at me with that. I just don't see another. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We didn't get it, but
Hate to ask you the price tag for that, or you got a rough price tag for that?
estimate of just the pedestrian bridge was something like 1.7.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
We do,
Yeah.
isn't there a pedestrian bridge going in Burlington
Mm-hmm.
from U Mall across the interstate over to
Yeah.
the city?
Yeah.
I think that's is that a done deal?
I think it is. I think it's, yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, I've seen them in plenty of spaces.
Yeah,
You just talk about pure. I mean, I think it could look nice. It could kind of be like the gateway to really the community,
Yeah.
and then connected to the path, which connects to Collins Pearlie, also to Satec, and then eventually with the health path up to the rail trail.
that's
So,
a hope, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know Andy Crossman, who I
Oh,
still
yeah.
haven't interviewed. It sounds like Andy's been doing a lot of good work on this.
He is awesome. Yes,
Yeah.
he's been incredible.
Yeah,
on that,
my,
yeah.
my bad. I gotta try to grab him sometime.
I'm sure he'd come. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and also another thing, I wouldn't say holding it up, but we got a grant from the state, from VTrans, I believe, to study the stormwater issues along the SASH.
That was definitely on my list.
Yeah.
Along the SASH.
Yeah, because that's really has not helped as folks at Tanglewood and others. There's a whole lot of work that needs to be done down there to reestablish some ditching and put in some bigger culverts and stuff like that. So once we get all that figured out.
Is the Tanglewood situation, is that project done, or is
It's
that?
not done. They paused work for the winter.
No, really.
But they got to work 6 weeks longer than they thought.
Really?
And we expected them to have to hang it up in late November, and they just paused
No, really.
around January 11th or so. Yeah.
But that'll get done, obviously,
In the
this
spring,
This
yeah.
spring.
Yeah, they got the lion's share of it done. It looks totally different back there.
Interesting.
You can
And
see.
will that be the first of the impaired waterway projects, if I'm wording that correctly, or?
Okay, yeah, the
That is
MS4.
That is one of them, right?
Yeah, that's arguably the most expensive one. Well, by the time we do all of them, obviously with inflation, I'm sure others will be more expensive. But that's, from what I understand, has been an issue for
Ages.
30, 40 years.
Sounds like
so.
Interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a big one.
Alan, in your many years with municipal government, Colchester, St. Albans Town, you've dealt with the state bureaucracy, whatever, state government, obviously a ton of times. How's that been? Do you feel dealings with the state for municipal officials are pretty good? Should that be a lot better, a lot easier? Or?
Well, I had the benefit of Senator Mazza being a friend.
Oh boy, but I'm sorry I didn't know him better. Talk about great guys. What a huge loss for Vermont.
And for Colchester.
For sure. So that he must have been hugely hopeful.
Yeah, if we ever ran into resistance, I would just go down to his store.
Wow.
And he'd get on the phone and say, "This is Dick," and everybody recognizes his voice. But yes, he opened tons of doors.
I bet.
And so for me, up here, it's important that our legislators really do work closely with the town and with the town manager in particular.
Yeah.
So there's a conduit of information going back and forth.
Sure.
And to me, it's regardless of political party, because towns are not really, government towns are not really that partisan.
Of course, in Franklin County, for legislators, as you well know, we're talking one political party these days.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
13 out of 13 Republicans.
yeah. And Representative Dickinson has been a very big help since I've started on a few different issues.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, you had a huge resource in former late Senator Mazza, but state government, should that be? Certainly, it just seems like I still hear references that Vermont is not, it's not business friendly enough. I still hear just a lot of complaints from some folks dealing with state government,
But again, it gets back to the demographics of the town. Frank Chaffee's head of GBIC.
Right.
And
for many years.
Right. And he worked very closely with the town and they had industrial parks off Route 7.
Right.
And so, we didn't have that much problems with the state.
Huh.
I'm trying to think of what problems we may have had. Very few, because
Really?
working with Frank for economic development
Yeah.
and then for any of the social support services, we was requested by the state to put in a technical rescue squad.
Huh.
And so we bought, through grants from the federal government, some huge trucks to respond to these crises. And so we had one truck that was over $1 million. And it started snowing on it, and everybody said, "That's ridiculous." It was private citizens, Mr. Miller of the ferry boat system, and Senator Mazza, and I forget the other third persons, chipped in to build a garage for these $1 million technical trucks.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if we have any millionaires in the town that would be as generous.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful. How have you fared with state government, Sean? I've asked you that before. You know, obviously a lot of these players at this point, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, Tate Brooks comes to mind. Tate's
I mean,
high-ranking state. I saw him in the background of the governor's address. A long-time town resident.
Yeah, and I met with him a couple times and have involved him on a few matters. I'll say that the people are fine. It's more of like the rules that is the difficulty. So,
and much more onerous, you would say, than what you're running into in Virginia, rules-wise, or
but rules-wise, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And I've even met with very accessible, by the way, in Montpelier.
Yeah.
Which I found to be surprising in the best way.
Yeah.
I've had meetings with maybe each commissioner of each department.
Oh.
But which I gotta say in Virginia or
good luck, or imagine New York.
Yeah, you'll get somebody way down the line, but
Right.
Commissioner Goldstein with ACCD, Herrick Fish and Wildlife, and the list goes on, which has been awesome. I was a total surprise.
Right.
But even talking to some of them about some issues that they agree with on some of them, but they're like, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
Like X so and so will never be able to make this change. especially in economic development. The state is very far, as they know, all you have to do is look at the numbers, very far behind on that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really the tax structure, and the education tax stops essentially all modern, or at least the top tier economic development initiatives. The education tax limits that, if not prevents it entirely. So that's just a tough one. I'll stop going down that soapbox because I'll go on for a while about that. But the other thing is obviously the Act 250. I think that, in terms of what the state could change in the near term, that'd be the number one thing to allow for more businesses, because there's so many obstacles to develop, so much red tape and restrictions, and how essentially random citizens can raise a very nominal amount of money and appeal or fight a project is tough. They talked about that at the Vermont Economic Conference. Was that yesterday? Yeah, my goodness. They talked about it there, and that's a real problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, in my full-time reporting days for many years, going back a bunch of years, but Act 250, I dealt with Act 250 quite a bit. And of course, with some people always complaining about Act 250, but of course, on the other side, the folks would say, hey, 97% of the applications get approved, and I'm talking to developers who would quickly say, yeah, and how many projects did we not even bother with because we didn't want to deal with Act 250?
Plus, it kicks the can might be the wrong term, but with the one construction season here, that appeal will push it to next year. So cost goes up, you lose people, contractors. It just, you can't work on that timeline economic development wise in 2025 or 2020 or 2010. You go back. But the new system, at least we'll see what it ends up looking like, but it is a hopeful step in the right direction.
Yeah. Or Vermont being so small, just mentioning for a second my reporting days, it was pretty easy. If I needed to talk to agency head, I could usually get the person, not layers and layers of bureaucracy, which I appreciated. I love it when Howard Dean was governor. He had one or maybe both of his kids would end up playing hockey at Collins Pearly.
Really?
I would routinely bump into him. I would always be smart enough to have my tape recorder. He was happy to talk to me for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But funny, just one other story. New York, of course, a totally different ball game. But for our former FM station, WLFE, we had pretty good coverage in Plattsburgh.
Okay.
And every once in a while, I'd go over for a meeting there. And then Governor Pataki was there for a meeting in Plattsburgh. So, of course, I had my tape recorder, hoping to get some tape. And he had about 5, 6, 7 aides with him. I wasn't even getting close to him, but I think I got close enough to say, Governor Elton Brand, which would be nothing. Elton Brand
Duke
being a former Duke. I'm a Dookie, great Duke basketball player who happened to be from Peekskill, New York. Pataki was the former mayor of Peekskill.
Yeah.
So when he heard that, he said, Elton. So I grabbed him for about 10 minutes. So thank you, Elton.
Yeah.
But anyway,
That's funny.
enough about me. I want to, again, March 4th, we have obviously the budget vote. We also have a contested race for the select board. Brendan Deso having recently resigned. He had 2 candidates, Bob Cross, a former longtime town fire chief, and Amanda Headley, a member of the town planning commission.
Yep.
And the board voted to give the appointment to Amanda.
Yep.
And again, those two will be contesting, I guess, a 2-year term on March 4th.
Yep.
And Jeff Sanders, incumbent, running unopposed for a 3-year term.
Correct.
So we have one contested race coming up.
We do. Yeah.
Interesting. Trying to track down. St. Albans City may have one contested city council race. I think a couple of contested races in Swanton, but so there'll be some activity. But again, I remember the town for years would have a lot of articles, and I think maybe starting last year, you just pretty much got it down to the one big budget article, Sean?
Yes.
What was the
Essentially.
thinking behind that? Did it just make more sense for you folks to just kind of have one article, or?
Yeah, less confusion. I'd never personally seen a ballot like the ones I looked up the ones from 10 years ago.
With
or
a lot of
something.
different articles?
Yeah.
Al, did that make sense to you? Did you think that was a better way to go?
Going to the
Just having one big budget article as opposed to a lot of different, smaller
Yeah. We had like
Personally, I
4.
would go for a lot smaller. It's very
Yeah.
hard to educate the public, and when you can catch different segments of the population at a time frame that they're willing to listen or
Or to
can
have the
listen,
public, right, pay any attention.
right?
Yeah.
So I think the more we have, the better it is.
Yeah.
They're informed. I was surprised somewhere right after this past election, people who voted, how little information they had, personally, objective information they had before they voted.
Yeah. But so that you're saying you were surprised by that?
I wasn't surprised. It was
guess
just
I-
more discouraging.
Yeah, I guess I'd say the same. I don't think that would surprise me, but I'm sure I'd be very discouraged. And just the media world these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And social, I don't even deal with social media,
do
but
it.
for a lot of folks, that's their main
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And I suspect you might suggest, Sean, that all the information making the rounds on social media, maybe not totally all accurate, huh?
I think it's a safe assessment.
Yeah.
That's why when we post stuff, on our website or Facebook or anything like
I
that,
guess that's worth mentioning. Do you post a lot of it on the town website? Is that
We
for
do.
folks who want to know what's going on in the town? That's
We do.
obviously a good thing to check out.
yep, and anything that's kind of top of mind or happening that day or that week, we have it pop up literally on the homepage, like
Oh.
right on the bottom right. You can't miss it.
And what is the web that's easy to access, easy to deal with?
The website, yeah, we have a great website.
Yeah.
It's just StAlbanstown.com.
Yeah. it's
I
easy
think we
enough.
also have StAlbansVT.gov. I think
Huh.
we don't use that one. We have the domain for it. That was before my time. But StAlbanstown.com is what we have on our cards and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Huh.
And then we
ST.
have yes,
Right.
St. St. Albans. And we have very active Facebook, which is largely led by Megan Sherland, our director of community development. I think she came on me.
Does she respond? Does she get into back and forth? I mean, I'm sure
No.
you must go crazy with inaccurate info you see. Will she respond to that, or is that just too tough to deal with?
It depends on, I would say largely no.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I'll say, if it's not clear, I've been pretty clear with being like, we're not doing that. But if somebody does say so, I don't read the comments because I like to be happy. So, but generally speaking, but they'll tell me if something happens. But if it's a clear, cut and dry answer, they'll ask them like, okay, respond to that. It could be about something as simple as a Holly Jolly Jamboree. What time is it? All that
Right.
stuff. From what I've seen, we haven't had too much of a problem with that on our page. Now, if people can share it to other pages and go
Yeah.
say what they'd like to say. But I like to keep the discourse to, if you want to talk to us, I have an open door policy.
I was going to add, you've said
Yeah.
that before. I mean, literally, folks can just walk in.
It happens very often. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And can literally walk in. Don't need an appointment. If
I
you're
can't
there,
promise I'll be available, but certainly they can come.
How many? And some folks do that. How many people? How
Yeah.
many visits will you get a week from folks just walking in? I mean, a few typically, or
Yeah, yep. Somebody either come pay the taxes or somebody will just come out of their way
Huh.
and come straight to the town manager's office to
Interesting.
talk about that. I've had people
Is that
stop in.
typical of other town? Do other town managers? Have you asked some of your counterparts? Is that typical, or I suspect it might not be typical, but
People managers that I've worked for, I would say it wasn't a practice,
yeah.
but most of them are open to it.
Interesting.
I have not asked. I guess it's just kind of my approach to it.
But that doesn't
Yeah.
happen too often. It's not like
I would say I probably average 1 or 2 a week.
oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes it's more, and sometimes less. But
Al, do you deal with social media?
Yeah. No, I don't. But to people having an open door policy, I
Yeah.
think it's extremely
Did you
important.
do that in Colchester?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
It's extremely important for town managers to be accessible and for the public to know that they're accessible.
Yeah.
Unlike the mayors, the town manager's not voted upon, so it's important to keep that support for the system. And you can put down a lot of different issues. We had an arts program, which I know Sean's working on, in Colchester where, with the different grades from kindergarten up through high school, student artists, and we then put their pictures that were judged as a high example by their teachers. We hung them in the various hallways up in the town hall. And typically then, when those new pictures came out and all the grandparents came, they would all come to my office and thank me. And then we got a discussion again about education and why it's important. So I think the more people that want to talk, I know it's disruptive,
Yeah.
but it's got an extremely strong positive point when you get to the issues.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Any news on the old town hall? you have a new real estate folks now
We
trying
do.
to sell that, I believe.
We do, yeah. Donahue Associates.
Oh yeah.
And actually the agent we're working with, her family's actually from St. Albans.
Huh.
They no longer live here, but they're nearby. And
Are you surprised? Would you have thought someone would have grabbed that by now, or is that not real surprising? Or
it's very surprising.
Very
Yeah,
surprising.
Yeah, it's been a little maddening, if I'm honest. When I first got here, I think it was my first day. It was the first meeting, and I went into the select board. I think it was whenever, and I was like, no, give this one to me. I was like, I can do stuff with this. Haven't been a part of projects on other historic buildings before. I was really excited and kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and and here we are 21 months later, and not much has happened. If we'd had a water sewer, it would have been
that's obviously the big issue there.
yeah, and that's a project that we're actively working towards right now.
And that project would be, we've talked about this before. You're not looking at a wastewater facility in the bay. This
No.
would be extending city
Cities.
water and sewer lines.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that's getting more attention these days.
Yeah, more traction. Talking to the state, working with Dom and Chip and them. It's in its infancy stages. So,
Have you got a
we're working.
rough price tag for that?
Yep.
Anything you want to share?
If the phased project, well, if we were to do the whole town, it
Yeah.
would be in the tens of millions. I'll just put it that
But
way.
you're talking about the whole town.
The whole, yeah. Which
And
is,
are you thinking of doing the whole town, or ideally?
if we were to get a lot of OPM, I would love to do that. But likely it's going to be phased. Yeah, down to the bay.
But the bay is the top priority, you would say?
Yep, I would say that. Yep, and also because the firehouse is down there, our fire department doesn't have water.
Is that, well, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
and we have basically a
Because
surface well there,
Really?
which is coming into, factors in as we
they always see them down at the town dock
garage.
doors.
Yep.
In the garage.
And that's where they essentially fill up,
Interesting.
which is obvious. You don't need to be a fireman to know that that's not okay.
How would you have thought
Yeah.
the old town hall? Are you surprised that no one's grabbed it or not?
No, it's dumb. It's a dumb.
It's not a dumb.
Dumb.
We're on TV out. It's not a dumb.
First of all, it's a very old building.
Yeah.
It's in good shape though.
Oh, well, that depends. In the summertime, it's too hot, and in the wintertime, it's too cold. It has
Yeah.
very little insulation.
Well, it's a project for sure,
Yeah.
but it's
But structurally, it's solid structurally anyway?
it is yeah.
Yeah.
We went to actually apply for a grant last year to replace the roof, figuring, and it didn't need to be replaced at all. And
Really?
it turned out to be such a small amount that we pulled the grant application because it was only like $3,000 to patch it.
So any hope, is this hopeless to you? Any hope for this building for the future?
Don't pop my balloon out.
No, some people in state government are going to have to be a little bit more tolerant of change
Yeah.
because it is it is a preserved building. What do you call it?
It's on the register.
Historic,
State register.
Yeah.
And so
But if you don't go for grants, you can do whatever you like to it. That's
yeah, but then that cost is more difficult than for us or for private sector to pay for that. If you're going to go to the second floor, it's going to be accessed by the public. You need to put an elevator in now. That staircase that goes up there is very difficult if you're old. So
it can be commercial downstairs and 2
something
units
private
upstairs.
upstairs.
Yeah.
You've got fire, because upstairs you only have one, or it's two, but the wooden staircase is nothing I'd run down.
Okay, you made your point, Al. Let's not go through this
Yeah.
anymore. It really is it'll be an investment, because when you get water sewer down there, the price will, quadruple.
Are you new real estate people? Then I guess if you're a real estate person, you've got to sound optimistic.
She's a lot more hopeful than Al's sounding right now. Yeah,
Anyway.
but we'll get there. I'm excited about this this new group that's doing it. They just have they have a wide net and a good team of people.
What about the site of the former Public Works garage? Any thoughts on that?
A lot of people
Plenty.
have a lot of thoughts on that
Yeah.
one. Anything from boat launch to a community.
Playground gardens.
I'm sorry, a community.
Basically, we could still utilize the old salt shed, because even though it doesn't look like it, that's newer than the orange garage.
Yeah.
It's pretty decent shape, but to kind of make that into a community center or venue of sorts, we could have outdoor events and still have a small non-motorized boat launch. But the boat launch a full boat launch is still on the table. But we're going to get the Army Corps of Engineers out to see if it's even viable to do that.
And you sure, as we've talked about many times, you could sure use another boat access area. Everybody who goes out towards Kilcare to the bay, and boy, it can be pretty tough out there with all the trailers parked along the road.
Yeah, the state hasn't seen this site as a viable full boat launch
Yeah.
for a number of reasons. I'm personally
the water too, and I mean the shallow water is a concern, obviously.
Yeah,
Right?
and actually being so close to a marina is,
Yeah.
which I think some people might think is a
plus, but they
it's
don't
not.
see it that way.
No, they
so,
don't. And just the overall depth of the water is not great.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see on that one.
But if nothing else, at least for kayaks, or you said non-motorized boats, I mean, easy to picture. Maybe a good place to get your kayak or canoe in anyway.
Yeah, and I kind of see it as if it goes that direction, then we get sidewalks and paths that connect the bay.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a bookend. You have the town hall and sidewalks, whatever that site turns into, down to the Bay Park. So you kind of have, a true kind of village
Right.
in that aspect. But yeah, that's going to be a big one. I personally also would have concerns that Georgia Shore would turn into Hathaway, because it's not the setup is a little different because of the
You're talking
entrance.
if it turned into a boat for a boat launch.
Yeah, because the setup, it looks like there's more,
Yeah.
but because there's not a road right next to where the launch would be,
Yeah.
but the parking would be just about the same. And so with the road's not, I mean, it's obviously thinner on Hathaway, but
Yeah.
I don't. That's a big project that we got to have people that are more qualified than we are to tell us what we can do there. So
And speaking of that neck of the woods, again, the town's looking to take over some of Route 36. Is that still in progress? Or?
it's legislature is going to hopefully approve that in this session. Yeah.
And what are you looking to do with the been long-standing concern about just the turn by the store and across from Bayside there?
And that's a big reason why we're doing this, is to finally address that. I've seen all kinds of different things.
There was some talk of a roundabout. You just don't have enough room for a roundabout, do you?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Mostly because I guess really the gas pumps. I've talked to Chuck
Yeah.
about, it'd be years down the road by the time we could even logistically even start to look at that. So it's looking like it might become
A
Might be.
three-way stop sign, maybe?
people are calling it four-way. I don't really
Four-way.
consider
Up
the
here.
pier parking lot to
Yeah.
be a street, but
But a three or four-way, that's getting some done.
yes, there's been a firm that's already kind of done plans on that a few years ago. So that's got some traction to it.
Yeah.
And plus, if we have the road, I think they're looking to designate it a Class 1. Yeah, and that would just also help the water sewer extension project. So, yeah.
Mentioning the Bay Park, I guess I'd be remiss. Anything to report on the old stone house?
We have an architect on board. He's pretty busy right now, but we're gonna hopefully get that started in the
Yeah.
designs and stuff in the hopefully this spring. Yeah.
But the slate roof issue, I mean, you're told that sounds, again,
It's a frustrating-
totally insane.
It is.
Yes, that's the, and also too with the doors, like as little as the doors, the
Yeah.
hardware. This is good. I'll have to keep my words good here. They want us to have the same day. The state want us to have the same hardware from the 1930s.
The same hardware?
Yes.
From
So-
almost 100 years ago.
Yeah. So they don't. So right now, most of us been to there. We have 2x4s to keep it, and we went out with them, and I didn't really mince words. I was like, does this look better than, just I don't, it could be a Walmart doorknob, but I'll
Right.
spray brass if you need me to.
Yeah.
Joking, but that's been a very frustrating process. Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Mhm.
I mean, there are some folks who are hoping to see that turn into a year-round facility. Does that seem,
That is.
ideally, would you like that, or does that just seem pretty hard to picture?
It seems hard to picture
Yeah.
financially to make a building that wasn't meant to be.
Right.
Because the state also won't allow us to put windows in the where the showers used to be, right, or the bathhouse sections.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be part of the process with the architect to
Yeah.
see what makes sense financially. I do feel confident about there being a full year-round venue there.
Yeah.
It just might not be the Stone House. Yeah.
When as I had before, speaking of the Bay Park, I walked there a lot, not so much lately for some reason, maybe winter, but
Yeah.
I think the town keeps that up in just very good shape. I'm
Yeah.
always impressed with what I see in the Bay Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel bad that I kind of forget about Cohen Park. Of course, people tell me, Richard, don't even mention that. It's a
It's a
great
hidden
place.
gem. Yeah.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
they have some great parks.
Yeah, we do. I agree.
Anyway.
Very nice.
Down to
Town
about-
forest too.
What's that?
And the town forest.
And not to mention the town forest, which I
Yeah.
don't hit enough. No,
Again, shout out
tremendous
to
asset.
Andy Crossman, who's
Yeah.
a vastly underpaid trail steward. Yeah.
Down to about 2 minutes. Al, you want a minute? Anything you want to quickly bring up that we haven't talked about? I'll give you a minute here.
Well, I think the best is to get involved in the town. We really welcome our citizens. We would like to work with younger people, as young as high school students, up through those people who are 60 and less. Make retirement for those over 65 an option to volunteer on more things. Those sort of things, basically get more people involved. It's
Yeah.
their government, it's their community.
And again, kudos to yourself for your many, many years being much involved with this. Sean,
It's
about a
true
minute.
asset.
Anything you quickly want to touch on that we haven't touched on?
Just to piggyback off of what Al said, if you can't think of what you want to volunteer for, if you don't have an event,
Talk to you guys. You'll
yeah,
find something.
We'll use your skill set. Trust me, we will. We have before. We will. Even Stan Dukas just, crafting crafted a shadow box and the picture frame of Vermont butternut wood.
Really?
And then we put a flag in it and thank you to the veterans. So that's just,
Wow.
that's a different form of volunteering,
Right.
but we take it and that was excellent. I guess one last thing I guess for the public is we'll soon be releasing our firehouse RFP.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
okay. And that's definitely in the works. A new firehouse.
Yep.
On the same site.
It might not be able to because we're
No.
looking at building for the future. I'll try to be quick here. I think it'll be too big to be able
really?
to put on that site.
But definitely moving on that. You need that.
Yeah. It's time. It's kind of the last big building project. Of things.
Okay, we'll call it a day. Again, town meeting day, not far away. Thanks to Sean Adkins, the St. Albans town manager. Great to see Al Vogele for the
Thank you.
first time out here in a while, the director of operations for St. Albans town. Thanks to my producer, Josh Pryor, the key guy around here. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. Thanks for watching us on Northwest Access TV. See you next time.